Our lion for today who started his life all the way up in West Africa, but soon found himself displaced all the way down to Southern Africa because of civil wars and coups, is a man who grew up in Botswana and learned in Zimbabwe, studied in the United States, worked for McKinsey briefly, but soon realized he had to start his own business. This man has built up Africa Leadership Academy, the Africa Leadership Group, and the Africa Leadership University. This man is a very, very promising lion who is rising up on the continent and who I personally emulate. And well, I've met him too, which is another bonus. But this guy is really someone to watch for. His advice is very insightful, and this is why today we'll cover him in the top 5 series. Take a listen to the top 5 rules of our entrepreneur for today, a lion of Africa, Fred Swaniker. Do you feel like all the entrepreneurship opportunities are gone? Do you feel like there is nothing really that you can bring which is new in your community or in your country? Well, Fred made that easier for us. He identified what he named the low-hanging fruits still existing in most parts of the continent that you can take up as an entrepreneur. Take a listen to his rule number 1.
One of our beliefs at the African Leadership University and the African Leadership Group more broadly is that Africa needs to develop leaders who are going to be problem solvers. Mm-hmm. So we've identified what we call the 7 grand challenges of Africa. These are big problems that Africa has to solve, like urbanization, healthcare, education, climate change, youth unemployment, governance, and infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Right? So these are big issues that Africa needs to solve. But we also have another list, what we call the 7 great opportunities. And these are the low-hanging fruit, things that we have been blessed with as a continent of Africa, where we have unusual competitive advantages, but we haven't captured them yet. On that list are things like agriculture, tourism, wildlife conservation, the management of our natural resources like our oil and gas and diamonds and so forth, the empowerment of women, regional integration and trade, and arts and culture. Mm-hmm. So these are things where, as we're trying to develop Africa, we shouldn't be just trying to copy the rest of the world. We need to see what are unique assets that only we as Africans have, and then how do we capitalize on those to drive economic development. So conservation of our wildlife we see is one of our greatest source of wealth. The rest of the world has killed all the animals, and we have some of the last reserves of the most unique biodiversity in the world. So we need to take a strategic approach to say, instead of just looking at it as something that we should just be harvesting, let's look at it as an African asset, because too many Africans don't see wildlife as something that belongs to us. Right? We experience it as something that's locked away for Western tourists to come and go on safari, and we don't get the benefits of it. And that's the wrong way to look at it. Rwanda is a great example of a country that has taken a serious look at its wildlife. Mountain gorillas are protected. I believe it brings about $400 million of revenue into this country. It's the number 1 earner of foreign exchange for Rwanda, is through their conservation and tourism. So Botswana is another example. Kenya has several billion dollars of its GDP comes from conservation tourism. So this is a serious business. This is not about just protecting wildlife for wildlife's sake. We need to think of it as, how do we drive economic development through wildlife conservation? And that's why we are here in the last few days.
Right. The idea of trying to make as much money as you can in a very, very short period of time is something that is probably part of human nature. Well, we see people flocking to gambling houses, trying to gamble their money, $20, trying to turn it into 1,000. We see also people who think they might be knowledgeable in some things. For example, soccer. They might want to bet on which team is going to win in a soccer match in England and end up earning a lot of money. Other people might want to bet in some things like the financial markets, whether you're betting currencies, whether you're betting on stocks, that is day trading and probably not investing. But most people, you would agree, want to make as much money as they can in a very short period of time. But this is something our lion for today disagrees with. He says you have to play the long game. You have to see the long-term vision, and only in playing the long-term game will you succeed as an entrepreneur. Take a listen to what Fred has to say.
One of my most vivid memories at the time was when I went to New York on a fundraising trip. I took the train from downtown Manhattan across the river to New Jersey to meet a potential donor. The meeting didn't go so well. I didn't get the money. It was now time to go back to the other side of the river. But there was one problem. I didn't have enough money to take the train to the other side. I remember looking across the river to the skyscrapers on Wall Street and imagining my classmates from Stanford Business School who were working there, earning hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I didn't even have train fare to go across the river. To this day, I still don't know how I got back. They say trauma does that to you, just wipes out things from your memory. Standing on the other side of the river that day, with no train fare, I could not have imagined that I would go on to raise $200 million just 12 years later, to launch 6 ventures, to collectively employ 500 people, and establish an unconventional university system that is poised to develop 3 million leaders for Africa. The point of the story is this: play the long game. Bill Gates once said, most people overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year and underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. As you leave here today, my wish for you is to have perseverance. Your journey is going to be tumultuous. You're going to go up and down. There'll be many times when you'll feel like giving up. Things won't be easy always, but that's the point. Do hard things and stick with them until you succeed. Play the long game and you'll succeed beyond your wildest dreams.
Now, you have your idea. You have a very, very insightful idea. You think it's very bright. A couple of your poor friends also think it's very bright. Well, because if they were rich and they thought it was bright, they would fund you. But well, the guys who have the money do not want to fund you. They just don't believe in your idea. What do? Our lion for today, Fred, says, do not give up. Take a listen to what he had to say.
That's the thing. I mean, people always want to bet on something that's winning, right? People always want to bet on the winning horse. And it's a shame, right? Because very often you start a project, it's a great concept, but no one wants to take the risk. So you just have to keep going and achieve little wins here and there, and then eventually others will jump on the wagon once it's going. So that's the thing you have to always keep going after. It's just don't give up until you get that first person to believe in you.
How do you establish the checks and balances to making sure that you don't end up using the money that belongs to your business in your personal expenses? Take a listen to what Fred had to say.
That the issue you're talking about is that sometimes, in South Africa they call it the black tax, right? Which is this pressure of, you have to look after your family members, and and they say, oh, I've heard you started a business, and can I get a free this? Can I get a free that? And you have to just be willing to, first try and explain and educate to your family members that this is not yours, and really trying to get them to understand the importance of separating your business from yourself. Because the problem with many of us is, many entrepreneurs, you start mixing the business with your personal, and you put the money that the investor is giving into your personal bank account. And the next thing, your family member has the ATM and they're withdrawing money, and you can't explain that. So you need to separate your business from your personal. And almost one of the things that I always do is, I, as fast as possible, need to get a partner who's my financial accountant or my chief partner, and give them access to the finances and make them control it. Make sure that there are at least 2 signatories. So you have made it impossible for you to get access to your money on your own. And before you're going to now take the money to give to your relative, your chief financial officer also has to sign. How are you going to now explain to that person why you're taking this money for your aunt? So create obstacles around you that make it impossible for you to get into those situations, and to keep focused on the business and separate it from your personal being. So those are some of that's some of the advice that I will give you. And also tell the family members just to be patient, because if they let you actually build your business and become successful, then you'll have money for them.
The best way to be an entrepreneur is by being one. There are no two ways about it. This is one of my favorite quotes from Fred Swaniker. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I learned from the school of hard knocks. Like I said, none of this stuff is stuff that is taught, because you read the case studies of the entrepreneurs in business school, and and everything goes smoothly, and they have some problem, and yes, but it gets solved, and the investors came. The best way to learn to be an entrepreneur is by being an entrepreneur. You don't learn entrepreneurship through theory. You learn it through practice. So one of the things I encourage people to do is start young and just taste entrepreneurship. And no matter how small it is. So for example, in my case, when I was 16, I was born in Ghana, we moved to Gambia, and then we moved to Botswana. And I went to school in Zimbabwe. And then my dad passed away when I was 16. And my mother had been a teacher in the town that we were living in Botswana. And the parents came to us and said, we want you to start a school for us. But she says, I can't quit my job to start a school. I've got 4 kids to look after. My husband has just passed away. I don't have the money to start a school. And they kept insisting. So she said, okay, fine. She'll start a small study group. And she rented out a very small room like this in a church building with 5 kids and a teacher, and got started. And then by then I'd finished my high school, and I had a year to wait before I went to college. So for my gap year, my mother made me the headmaster of the school. And I was 18. I taught the classes, I managed the kids, I dealt with the parents, and I grew it from 25 kids to 50 kids. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was just learning on the job. And then when I went home in the afternoon, I would ask her for advice about what to do the next day. It was that. Now, fast forward, I go to college, I get my first job at McKinsey, I do my first biotech startup, and then I'm back at business school, and I now have this idea to start African Leadership Academy. Much big idea. We're going to have to raise millions of dollars and recruit students from 54 countries in Africa and build a campus, all these things, much, much bigger than that small, tiny school in dusty Selebi Pikwe, Botswana. But what gave me the confidence that I could even do something so much big and so much complex was that small project I had done when I was 18, working in that small town with 25 kids. That's what gave me the confidence that, oh, you know what, I can actually build this school. If you look at many entrepreneurs, they started young with small things. Bill Gates was programming computers when he was 14, 16 in high school, and that's what led him when he was 18, 19 to start Microsoft. You look at Pierre Omidyar, the founder of eBay, same thing. Steve Jobs was given some computer parts when he was a teenager, and he started playing with that and started, got a job in an internship at Hewlett Packard, and he learned that way. So those small projects that you're doing is what is giving you the practice, and you're learning. And even, if I think about African Leadership Academy gave me the practice to launch the African Leadership Network, and then eventually to launch the African Leadership University, because African Leadership Academy, the goal was to develop 6,000 leaders in 50 years. It's a huge project. We went through a lot of learnings, and we so far developed 1,000 leaders. But that gave me practice to now do the African Leadership University, where we're trying to create 3 million leaders, so 500 times bigger. If I hadn't done the academy, I wouldn't have had the practice and the confidence to now do the university. And if I hadn't done the high school, my mother's school when I was 18, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So it's all built up that way, and you just got to start with something small, and that's how you keep going.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Now, if you liked something that Fred said, or if you disagreed with anything, be sure to register your complaints or your applauses in the comments below. And another thing, just make sure you share this video with as many of your friends as possible, so that they too can get the wisdom from our lion for today, Fred Swaniker. If there's another entrepreneur, or rather another lion, that you want me to profile next in our top 5 series, be sure also to leave it in the comments below, and I'll be sure to profile that entrepreneur for you. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. My name is Maro.